In this video, I'm going to show you how you can take WordPress to another level and how you can use the newfound skills I'm going to teach you to build almost any type of website. Now make sure you stick around to the end where I'll tell you my top picks for free tools that you should check out. My name is Paul C from WPTuts, and this channel is all about helping you build better looking websites faster and easier. Now, if you're like me and you've been using WordPress for more than 5 minutes, you'll have come across a lot of different limitations. These limitations have you then looking for plugins to fill the gaps that should be easy to fill. Well, using the skills and tools I'll show you in this video, I'll help you fill those gaps for yourself, as well as open up a world of exciting possibilities to take WordPress to a whole new level. Let's get the explanation of what a custom field is out of the way right now so we can move on to the more fun stuff. Now, WordPress custom fields let you add, store and display additional information about a piece of content in WordPress. Now, from a technical point of view, custom fields help you store metadata in your WordPress database. If this term doesn't sound familiar, don't worry. Custom fields are used by many well-known WordPress plugins. So for example, plugins like WooCommerce use custom fields for much of the information of each of the products. So things like the pricing, the SKU code and other additional information are all custom fields. Now the best thing is, if you want to add your own custom fields, you don't need to be some kind of coder or tech whiz kid. In fact, the whole video is all about how easy it is to get started for yourself. Now the beauty of WordPress is that you always have choices, and this holds true when you're looking to add your own custom fields to your websites. There are a range of great plugins out there. Some are free and some are premium. Now for the remainder of this particular video, we'll be using Advanced Custom Fields, or ACF, and the free version. This is a widely used and well supported plugin for WordPress, making it easy to find more help and support on the topic should you want to. Now stick around until later and I'll give you a list of alternatives and the pros and cons of each one of those so you can make a really informed decision. If you'd like to follow along with me, go ahead and install Advanced Custom Fields on a clean copy of WordPress, and let's get stuck into creating our very first custom fields. So now that we have Advanced Custom Fields installed, let's go ahead and start to create our new custom fields. So coming over into the dashboard, we're going to come down to Custom Fields and we're going to choose the option for Field Groups, and I'll show you why in a moment. Let's open that up, and this will now show any or all of the field groups that we've created. Now, a field group is just a way of grouping your fields into a logical order. For example, you may create one field group that's called book details, and inside there you have a price, you have a link to the book, you have an ISBN number and additional information. You may then have a different field group that contains author information. That's just a simple logical way of organizing everything together. So let's go ahead and create our first field group. Let's click the option to add field group. And this will then open up the field group area where we can create the field group, and we can also insert the fields we want to include in it. So for this example, we're going to call this book details. I'm going to scroll down underneath, and this is where all of our field groups will be set up. This is broken down into 3 simple logical sections. We've got the label, the name, and the type of field that it is. Then underneath we can create the field itself, and as we create more, this will start to populate. So let's go ahead and create our first field. First of all, we've got the field type, and inside there we've got a lot of different types of fields, things like text, numbers, URLs, emails, and so on. Anything that's in gray is a Pro only feature. Unless you have Advanced Custom Fields Pro, you won't have access to that. So for this example, we're going to start off with a really simple number value. Underneath then, you can see things change based upon the different types of fields that you choose. So for example, if we change this to text area, you'll see the number options underneath change. If we change this to something like image, again, you can see the options change. So let's set that back to be number. Next up, we've got the field label and the field name. Now, every single field type that you create, every custom field will have these basic parameters that you need to set up. So the field label is just the label that's going to be associated with this field. So for this example, it's going to be book price. You'll find then once you click inside the field name underneath, this will automatically pre-fill it out for you. No capital letters, no spaces. Everything is either lowercase and then separated by an underscore or a dash to make sure you don't have any kind of issues. So make sure that if you change the name inside here, which you can freely do, you just simply make sure you keep to that convention. So for example, if we wanted to put in UK, you can see we have to put underscore UK. Let's remove that. Your default value is purely optional. If you want to put a default value in, you can do. If you don't, you can leave it out. And as with everything inside Advanced Custom Fields, you can see pretty much every field has this little question mark. This will tell you what this specific entry is all about. So if you're ever stuck, just simply go ahead and click and take a look. Next up, you've got validation. Do you want to set this as a required field? Well, in our example, we may want to have this, so every book that we put in has to have a price associated with it. So all we need to do is check the required option. Then if you want to, you can insert minimum and maximum values, drop those inside here. Presentation is basically nice ways of doing things like adding instructions if you want to put placeholder text in. If you're using step sizes, so for example, you may want your prices to go between 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, those kinds of things. You can set your step values inside there. Your prepend and append is things you want to put before or after. This is only inside the dashboard of WordPress and doesn't affect the actual front end of the site. So for example, we may want to put in a pound sign, so we know there's going to be pounds, and you may want to put an append in there as well. If you want to set up things like wrapper attributes, so for example, you want to set up the width, the class, and the ID, you can do that here. For this example, let's set this to be something like 50%. Conditional logic. This is probably a more advanced feature, but can be useful when you start to have more complex field groups. If you open it up, you can see it says, show this field if something matches. And you can set up multiple rules as well. Let's just disable that for now. So now we've done the basics of setting everything up. We can then go ahead and we can say, add another field. So now we're adding in a second field. For this one, we want to put who the author is. So we're going to do the same thing again. This time we're going to set this to be text. Then we're going to drop in the field label. So we're going to say book author. You'll see we click underneath, pre-fills it out. There's no default value. Validation, we're going to set it to be required. We don't worry about a character limit. Presentation, we're going to leave it as it is. We'll just set the author to be 50% as well. And we don't want to worry about conditional logic. Now we're going to add one more field in. So we're going to add one more. And this time, this is going to be the synopsis of the actual book itself. So this is going to be like a small version of what the book is about. So for this example, we're going to just choose the option for text area. This gives us more control over having a nicer, larger amount of content. You could also, if you wanted to, use the WYSIWYG editor, which then gives some formatting options. Let's choose that as an option. And you can see this now changes. So let's stick with that one for now. Let's go ahead, drop in the field label. So we're going to set this to be synopsis. And you can see we'll pre-fill out the field name. Default value again left as it is. We don't worry about too much of this. We'll set it to be required. Presentation, we'll leave everything as it is. You can see now though, inside here we have different options because we've chosen a different field type. So again, we've got the instructions, but we have tabs. In other words, what kind of format you want this WYSIWYG editor to take. You can have visual and text. You can have visual only or text only. For this, we're going to have visual only. So this allows us to do things like put bold, italic, underline, maybe even drop some pictures in there, like the old WordPress editor that we kind of used to from years ago. Toolbar, we're going to keep this to be basic so we can have only really simple options, but again, you can have as complex as you want. We're going to disable the show media upload buttons because we don't want to allow people to upload anything to our site, and we're going to leave everything else as it is. Conditional logic, everything, leave it as it is. So now we've created our 3 key fields. So our field group is basically set up. So now if we take a look at it, you can see there's our labels. You can see we've got this little red star afterwards telling us that these are all required fields. If you want to edit, duplicate, or delete, you can do that inside here. The name is exactly what you can see there. So if we expand this out and go to general, you can see there's our field name. So if we ever need to use that to reference it, we've got a very quick and easy way of seeing it. And then finally, we have the type of field that this is: numbers, text, and WYSIWYG editors, each one with their own little icon. So we can at a glance see exactly what's going on. Now, before we wrap things up on this particular section, we need to take a look at the settings underneath because this is incredibly important. And again, we'll come back to this a little later because we're going to change a few things. So we've got location rules, presentation, and group settings. The rules, the most important part of it. This says where are these fields actually going to be used. At the moment, you can see it says post type is equal to post, and that's where we're going to use them. But there's an awful lot of options inside here. If we open up the post type, you can see we can have this to go to post category, post format. We'll keep this to post type though. Then you've got your operator. Is this equal to or not equal to? Really simple. And finally, you've got what you check it against. So is the post type equal to or not equal to post, page, landing page, so on and so forth. So this is how you set up where and when this is used. And you can stack these. You can have more than one set of rules. So these same sets of content can actually be used in various different post types and so on. Presentation. How do you want to display this? Do you want to use things like standard WordPress meta box, seamless, no meta box, on the side, left? There's all manner of things. Play about with those and see how they affect the way things actually look. And then you can choose to hide any of these options in the particular location that you're using. So for example, with these posts, we may want to sort of remove things like the excerpt so we can use our own custom synopsis. We'll say we want to hide that. So this is what will be hidden from the normal WordPress post type. And then we're basically pretty much done. Group settings. Do you want this to be active? And do you want to show this in the REST API? Probably a little bit too advanced to what we want, but we do want to make this active. So we'll leave that as it is, and we'll hit Save Changes. And that now is our field group created. So now if we go back to our field groups, you can see there's our book details, there's our key, the location, and the number of fields. And if we've added a description, it'll be displayed inside there. So now we've created our first set of custom fields. Let's go ahead and take a look at how they've been integrated now into the normal WordPress posts. So if we come into our posts and go to all posts, you can see I've got a bunch of pre-filled out filler text. Let's go ahead and open one of these up. And inside there you can see the normal layout for WordPress. All the same options are used in here. If we scroll down though, we now have these new options: book details, book author, and synopsis. And as you can see, we get the WYSIWYG editor. So now we can go ahead and fill that information out on all of our posts to have that info inside the posts. Whenever we create one, this will be added in, and any posts that already exist will also have these new custom fields associated with it. That's how easy it is to add custom fields using ACF into WordPress. Now you've seen how to create your own custom fields and assign them to WordPress posts. You're probably wondering, how do you actually output this information? Great question, and there are many ways in which you can approach this. You can obviously get in and custom code them into a WordPress theme, but that's way above my pay grade and also way above what I want to cover in this video. You could, on a simpler level, use shortcodes in the WordPress editor to output some field types like text and numbers, but again, that's also pretty limited. So this is where we have more choices and can use some popular plugins, themes, and page builders to make this easier and way more visual. So let's go through and explore a couple of simple examples just so I can show you how this kind of thing can work. So let's take a look at how we can use Elementor Pro to start pulling in this new custom meta information that we've created inside our custom fields and inside our field group. So to do that, we've already created a blank page called Books. I'm going to edit this with Elementor, and that will load in the page design that we've got created. Now, don't worry about this. This is not important. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the new features that's part of Elementor Pro 3.8, and that's the ability to create a loop grid, because I want to show you how you can combine dynamic information alongside this kind of feature to create a nice kind of listing. So let's go ahead and grab this loop grid option, and we'll drag and drop that into our page design. You can see this now says we need to create or start with a template if you've created one previously. For this example, we're going to say create a template. We'll save this design, and that will then take us over so we can start building the template for our individual card design. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of these kind of built-in features for things like the post title and those kinds of things, alongside the ability to use normal standard basic widgets and reference our custom ACF meta fields. So first of all, we want to have the actual thumbnail image of our particular book. To do that, we're going to grab this featured image and just simply drop that into this little area. That will then go ahead, grab the featured image for one of our posts and display it. So we've got the first thing already set in place. Let's come over to our little Rubik's Cube, click on that, and we're going to grab the post title. So this is just using one of the built-in features to grab that post title for the standard WordPress posts. You can see that pulls things in, so all we need to do now is go ahead and style this a little. So we'll set this to be H3. Come into our styles, we'll change our color so it's easier to see, and we'll also come into our typography and we'll choose one of our predefined styles. So there's the first part. Let's come back out of here. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use some of the basic options. So we want to put the synopsis underneath here, which is one of our custom meta fields. To do that, we're going to grab the text editor and drop that underneath our title. So now you can see that just pulls in the normal standard filler text. We want to reference that dynamic information. To do that, we've got the dynamic tags feature, which is this little database icon. And anywhere you see that inside Elementor Pro, you can access dynamic data. So you can reference all kinds of information, including ACF fields in a lot of instances. So we're going to click on that. And this has a lot of different fields. But what we want is to scroll right to the bottom. And there's ACF field. We'll select it. And now you can see nothing happens. And that's because we now need to tell it what field we want to reference. To do that, click on the little wrench icon to the next of where it says ACF field. And there is the key. Now the key is the field name that we gave each one of our unique ACF fields. So we're going to click to open that up, and you can see there's our three that we created: the book price, the book author, and the synopsis. For this, we want to grab synopsis. We'll select it and give it a second, and that will then load it in. So again, we just need to quickly go ahead and style this. We'll change the color. So we've now referenced a couple of different kinds of information. So let's go and grab the text now for the actual price and the author information. Again, coming back to our Rubik's Cube, this time we're going to grab ourselves a heading and drop that underneath the synopsis. We'll change this to be a div or a span, doesn't really matter too much. We'll set it to be a div. We'll then click on the little database dynamic tags icon next to the title, click inside there, scroll to the bottom, choose ACF field. Click the wrench icon one more time, change our key for this example to be book author. We're going to open up advanced, and we're going to drop in the word by and a space for the before. So this now will say by the author's name, Raymond E. Feist. Again, let's quickly go ahead, style this. We'll change the color. So we'll just set this to be accent text one more time. And you can see there now the author by Raymond E. Feist. And what we're going to do just for ease is we're going to just duplicate that. So we'll come over where it says Raymond E. Feist. We'll right click and we'll just choose duplicate. This makes our life easy because we can just click on the little wrench icon one more time, change that from book author to book price, come into advanced, and we'll just put price. And we're going to put the pound sign in. And we've now set up all the meta information, all our custom information. We've got the featured image, the name of the post or the title of the post, the synopsis, the author, and the price. Simple as that. We'll click update. And then we're going to use save and back. And as you can see, now we have that using that loop feature to repeat it. And you can see we've got now 3 of our posts, which is the 3 different books that I wanted, including all the relevant meta information underneath. That's the basics of how you get started referencing and displaying the ACF custom meta fields that we've just created. Another method is to use a high quality theme like Blocksy Pro, which allows us to use dynamic data, ACF fields, those kinds of things in the theme itself. So I'm going to use that to demonstrate another way in which you can output this information. To do it, all we're going to do is head over into the appearance and customize option so we can customize the actual layout. Once we're inside the customizer, I'm going to go over to my book section, which is what we've got set up to display the actual book information. And you can see this now shows us a typical look. We've got our featured image, the title, the information underneath it, and so on. However, we need to change this over for that relevant ACF data, those custom fields we created. Now to do that, we're simply going to click edit. That's going to open up the options on the left hand side. And we can change the visual look of this if we want to. But for now, I want to focus on the cards. Now the cards again are these individual items. So each of the books has a card layout. So we're going to click to open up the card options. And you see this now shows us all the current information. So our post meta, you can see our title, featured image, so on. So very similar to what Elementor gives us, but obviously we don't get that same kind of level of control and drag and drop as we do because it's a theme. But we still get a lot of control. So to do this now, let's go ahead. We don't want the excerpt in this example, so we're going to disable that. So we just click the little eye icon, and that removes it. You can see we've got the post meta, which gives us the date that it was posted and so on. So again, we're going to remove that. Okay, so we're now just basically left with some really simple information. Now you'll notice at the bottom we get this ACF fields. This is currently disabled. Let's go ahead and enable it by clicking the little eye icon. And now we can open this up and we can choose what information we want to reference. So let's click to open it. And by default, you can see book prices selected. If we expand it, there's our 3 custom fields, our price, author, and synopsis one more time. So for this example, let's choose the synopsis. Now we don't need to worry about things like labels or before or after or anything else. This is now just going to show us that simple synopsis information. We've basically got the first piece in there. Now, we've only got one ACF field, so what can we kind of do? What we need to do is click on the clone item. So we'll clone this 2 times. We'll open up the second field. We'll change this from synopsis to book author. We can use the label if we want to, and what this will do is this will look for the label that's used inside ACF and output that into our layout. So you can see book author Raymond E. Feist. We don't want to do that though. Let's uncheck that option and let's go and just put in, like we did in the last one, just put by and space, and we can see that puts in by Raymond E. Feist. Now it take a couple of seconds to update sometimes, so don't worry if it doesn't show it exactly as you expect. So let's just minimize that one. Let's open up the third and final one. And this one, we're going to just change this to book price. And like we did before, we'll just simply go ahead. And we could actually use the label if you wanted to, or we can just put price and the pound sign in like we've done before. And there we go. We now have our information placed inside here. If you want to move any of these around, we can simply just drag and drop them. So we may want to take the title and put that below the featured image like we saw in our first example. We may not want to have the post meta at the top where it says books. So again, we can just disable that. And now we can just go ahead and we can customize the look and feel of this to make it sort of in line with everything else. But that's simple example of how you can use this with a theme like Blocksy to input that custom ACF meta information. For this section, we're going to be using GenerateBlocks, a very, very useful and powerful set of tools. The nice thing is you can use the free version to get an awful lot of what I'm going to cover in this done. And it's a great way of working with Gutenberg if you don't want to go down the plain old vanilla Gutenberg route. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this basic page that I've already gone ahead and created, and we're going to come over, we're going to start adding some elements in. So first of all, we're going to come down and we're going to select the container. So once we drop that in, we now have a container to contain everything inside it. We're going to click the plus inside the container and we're going to go ahead and find the query loop. Now we're using the GenerateBlocks query loop. There is a version of this that you can use as part of WordPress itself as the native Gutenberg, and you can probably do a lot of what I'm going to cover inside there. For this though, we're going to use the query loop. We're going to start off with this 2-column layout, so it gives us a good starting point. And much as we've seen previously, this now starts to pull in some basic data that it thinks is what we're going to use. Some of it's correct, some not so much so. Okay, so if we expand this out so we can see in list view, we can see exactly what's going on. We've got our query loop, and inside there we've got a grid, and inside the grid we've got a post template. Now this post template is basically another one of those card designs like we've seen with Blocksy and also with Elementor Pro. So each one of these is a card design. So when we use this post template or card, we basically design one of these and then this gets replicated, just replacing the data with the next record, the next book in this example. So to do things on here, all we need to do is make sure we've got the post template selected, and inside there you can see we have 4 different elements. Our featured image, title, post date and excerpt. We can get rid of some of these. We don't want the post date, so we'll remove that, and we don't want the post excerpt, so we'll remove that as well. The image and the post title are both perfectly fine. While we're here though, let's go ahead and make lives a little easier by changing the background color on these cards. So first of all, we're going to come over to our block on the right hand side into our colors and set our background color to one of our global colors, which is this almost black. That'll do for this example. And the text colors, we'll leave that as it is for the moment. We're also going to select our grid. And inside there, we can now go ahead and set any spacing for the horizontal and the vertical, so we can control that. And if we want to control the actual width of each one of these individual cards, we can come into the post template. And if we can look on the right-hand side, you can see layout. We'll set this to 33%. That now stacks these 3 by side. Okay, so with that being done, let's go ahead now and add in the content that we want, the dynamic data. So like we've seen before, anything to do with working with Gutenberg, we click the plus to open up the option to search for the relevant block that we want. And for this example, we're going to grab the headline block. We'll change this from H2 to paragraph. And then what we can do is we can now enable dynamic data and we can control what content is going to be pulled in. To do that, let's come over to the right-hand side. And inside there, you can see we have dynamic data. Let's go ahead, enable that. We leave the source as current post because this is going to pull in all of the posts inside this particular section. The content source and the link source. Now the content source, if we open that up, allows us to choose from most of the predefined options you have as part of WordPress: title, excerpt, post date, and so on. However, we want some post meta. So we'll select post meta from the list, and you see underneath it says post meta field, and if we click None of the three that we want are actually listed inside here. So how do we get about this? Well, the way that GenerateBlocks works is we can still reference those. We just need to know what their name is. Like we saw earlier on where we named each one of our custom fields. This is where we're going to use that data. So for this in, we know synopsis is the first option. So you can see once we type that in, we'll hit return, and now that puts the word synopsis inside our card design. And that's it. There's nothing being pulled in. And this is one of those little frustrations. It doesn't actually pull the live data in. It only pulls in the placeholder for the ACF field. So if we just go ahead and we'll save or update this page, let's just quickly preview this to make sure that everything is actually in fact working. So we'll preview in a new tab, and you can see there's the actual information from the synopsis custom field. So it is working. We know it's working. Let's go back now and let's repeat that process 2 more times. Let's just duplicate this and duplicate it 1 more time. And now all we needed to do is change the actual content that's being referenced. So this time we want to put the book author in. So we'll come over, we'll clear that post meta field, and we'll put book _ author. Again, using that custom field name. We'll hit enter or return. That now fills that information in, and we'll do the same thing now for the third and final one, which is the price. So again, we'll just come in, we'll just delete what's in there. We'll put book _ price, hit enter or return, and that's now added that information in. So let's go ahead, update this, go over to our preview and refresh, and there's our actual author and the price. Now, this doesn't really show that this is the author or the price, so we need to rectify that. With GenerateBlocks, that's incredibly simple. Let's select the book author. We'll just close this down. We'll come into the icon area. Now, this is kind of weird. You think, well, we don't want to put an icon, we'll put some text in there. Well, you see we've got this icon SVG HTML. We can literally put the SVG HTML code in there to put icons in, but we can also just type directly in there and also apply HTML formatting if we wanted to. So for this example, we know this is the author, so we're just going to put by like we've done before and a full colon. You can see that just puts by underneath, but we take a look at our preview, you can see by book author. We'll do the same thing now for the price. We'll select it. We'll just simply go ahead, put the pound sign in this example, and you see that puts the book price in. And if we want to adjust spacing and alignment and things like that, we can adjust that inside here. So let's say we wanted to get rid of any spacing there at all. We could just put 0 in. And let's just say we'll put 0.1 in just to give us a tiny bit of space. I'll do the same for the author. We'll just come in and we'll say let's put 0.2 in there because we want to separate this a little bit further than the actual pound sign. So now if we go ahead and update, refresh our page, there's all our dynamic data being pulled into GenerateBlocks. And this is just a really simple example of how you could use something like GenerateBlocks. And obviously we go ahead and customize the look and feel of this to get what we want. But now you've seen how you can get the dynamic data in there. It is very, very simple and straightforward. So now this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the tools that you can use. And I'll include some more of my top recommendations at the end of this video and also link them below for ease. Now, while this guide is aimed at covering the basics, there are many more advanced features available using Advanced Custom Fields Pro. You've got features like a full image gallery, repeater fields, and flexible content fields. Incredibly powerful features. Now, it's beyond the scope of what I aim to cover here today, but I've included a full playlist in the description for you to check out once you become familiar with everything covered here in this video. All of the advanced features have been covered in that playlist. Check it out. Now, if all you want to do is add custom fields to the core WordPress options like posts or pages, you should now have all the fundamental skills to get started exploring the many options that's opened up. However, let's take it one step further by creating our own custom post type, or CPT. So what is a custom post type? Well, custom post types are unique post types that have been added to WordPress. The key idea is that they allow you to easily add additional functionality to your website, but don't want to add everything to the standard WordPress posts. Unfortunately, Advanced Custom Fields currently doesn't have this functionality included, whereas many of the alternative options I'll recommend later in this video actually do. But don't worry, we can fix that easily by using a free plugin called CPT UI. So let's take a really simple topic and create our own unique custom post type to handle this, and then assign our previously created custom fields to our new post type. Now, I've already installed CPT UI, and if you'd like to follow along with me, just go ahead and search for it and then install and activate it. I've already installed CPT UI, but if you haven't, maybe go ahead and install it now so you can follow along. All we need to do once it's installed and activated is come over to the left-hand side to CPT UI, and we're going to choose the very first option, which is Add Edit Post Types. This will allow us to create our new custom post type for our books. So the first thing we're going to do is give this a post type slug, and this is what's going to be displayed in the URL for your site. So for example, mysite.com/books/ the name of the book that you're going to view. So we're going to set this to be books. The plural label is going to be books as well, and the singular label is going to be book. We could, if we wanted to, leave it at this point, but there are some things that I do think are worthwhile setting up at this point, just to make the whole process a little easier. Next up, you have your additional labels. We're going to leave the additional labels out, but let me just quickly tell you what they actually reference inside WordPress itself. For example, you can see things like menu name, all items, add new, and so on. Whenever you come over any of these items on the left-hand side, for example, posts, you can see we've got all posts, add new, and so on. If you don't want to use the default settings like add new for your books and those kinds of things, you can manually override those by setting whatever value that you want inside any of these relevant areas. So you can do that if you want to. For me, I'm going to leave them as they are, but if you need to, those options are there. Let's scroll right the way down though until we get to the option for settings, and there's a couple of things you need to make sure are set up correctly inside here. First of all, you want to make sure, if we come down, that we've got has archive is set to be true. This means that we have an archive on the front of our site, which means we can list our books, and without it, you won't see it. And then if you're using something like Elementor Pro to create your template, you won't have the ability to create your archive for your books because it's basically disabled. So make sure you set that to be true. Scrolling a little further, we're going to set the hierarchical to true as well. This is more from a visual point of view than having any kind of functionality that we have to enable or disable. Just makes the process of working with your new custom post types a little smoother and easier. Coming further down, you can see we've got the option to set things like our menu position. We'll leave that as it is, but if you want to be specific where it's set on the left-hand side, you can do that inside here. We want to make sure this is set to true to show in the menu, and if you want to drop in your own custom menu icon, you can use that, or you can do things like choose your dash icons and so on. So let's see if we can find a book inside here. There we go, that looks pretty good. We'll click to add that, and we've got a custom icon to be used. Then underneath, you can see what does this support. In other words, what features are going to be enabled inside our custom post type. So things like the title, the editor, the featured image, and so on. So if you want to allow comments and you want to have control over that, you can enable that inside here. I tend to go with the basic defaults unless there's something very specific I'm looking to do. So we're going to leave those as they are. Then we're going to scroll a little further down and you can see this says, what taxonomies do you want to associate this with? We don't want to associate it with any at this point in time, so we're going to leave that completely blank. Let's go ahead and click Add Post Type, and you can see when we take a look at the left-hand side, there's our new custom post type called Books. Inside there, you've got All Books and Add New. So if we click on All Books, you'll see there are no books found. If we click to go take a look and Add New, you'll see inside here we have really basic options. We've got the title, we've got the content, we've got the featured image and the page attributes. That's basically it because we didn't enable any other features. That's exactly what we wanted. But you'll also notice that we don't have those custom meta fields we created for the book price, the synopsis and so on. That's because they are still only associated with the WordPress posts. And this is a custom post type. So let's rectify that. Let's come back out of here into the dashboard. Let's come down to our meta fields, our custom fields, and open up our field group. And there's our book details. So let's just open this up. Let's scroll down to the bottom. Let's go to the location rules. And now if we wanted to, we can leave this associated with our current posts, or we could replace it, or we can have it associated with both of them. For this example, let's just say we want to change the post type is equal to, and we're going to set this to be our new custom post type, which is our books. So we'll choose book from the list, and we'll just say save changes. And now we come over to our books. We'll add a new book. And all the normal things are inside there, including now our new custom book details for our book price, author, and synopsis. And if we just jump back out of here and go into our posts, and we open up our post information, click on our first book, you'll find that they are no longer associated with that. So now that we've gone ahead and we created our custom post type, we created our books, and we've gone in and added the meta information into it from our field group, from our custom fields, what's next? Now we've created our own custom post type for our books. Let's use Elementor Pro and create a new template for our new post type, and also add in the custom fields along with the default WordPress fields to display our content. To do that, we're going to come into the template section and into Theme Builder. Now inside the Theme Builder, all the various different components are listed down the left-hand side. So we want to create a new archive to start off with, which is going to list all of our books. So we're going to click to add a new archive. That will load in the Elementor editor, and then we can start building our archive. Now you could, if you wanted to, use one of the pre-built layouts to start off with to speed things up, but in this example, we're going to scrap that completely. So let's just close this down, and we're back into the page like we saw before. Now to make our life super simple, we've already created the template to display the information for our books, so we can use that again. And this is one of the beauties of working with templates. So what we're going to do is we're going to just come down until we get to the loop grid. We're going to drag that into our design. We'll wait for that to load. And then you can see we've got post template type is set to posts, and choose a template. So what we're going to do is we're going to click inside there, and we're just going to start typing in loop. And there's our Elementor loop that we created previously. We'll select that from there. That will now pull in what it thinks is right. In this example, the posts. Now, this is pulling in the standard posts like we saw right back at the beginning, not our custom post type for books. So let's rectify that. We're going to come into the query, and inside there, we're going to change the source from posts, and we're going to change that to our custom post type of books. Now you can see nothing really changes inside the main editor because, well, basically the information is exactly the same. But this is now referencing our book. So when we add a new book in, we'll see that listed inside this archive. We're going to add some pagination. So as our book collection grows, we can make sure that we can go through all those. So we'll set our pagination. We'll choose something like numbers and previous and next. Now nothing's going to show up because we literally only have 3 books inside here, but when this grows, we will start to see those pagination options pop up, and you can customize them inside here if you want to as well. So we've basically set up the template now for our books archive. So what we can do is we can click on publish, and this is where things are slightly different to what we saw previously when we created just a standard plain old vanilla page. Now we get to choose where and when this template will be referenced. So we're going to add a condition. This will set it to be all archives by default, but we don't want that. We only want this to be using the book archive. So we'll select that. And now when we look at the archive of books, no matter what kind of book it is, where we categorize things and so on, that will always use this new template. So let's say save and close. And we've now created our template and assigned the condition to start using it. Okay, so this is the site as it is. Ignore what it's like. It's just something I've been playing around with. But let's go up to the address bar at the top, and we'll put in book, and we'll press return. And you can see that now is using that template for our books. If we click on any of these books, that'll take us over to a pretty ugly looking page that's the single post template. So we now need to quickly address that, set up the template, set up the conditions to make sure this looks the way that we want. So let's do that now. Let's head back over into WordPress, back into the template section, and back into Theme Builder. This time we're going to choose the option to create a single post. We'll click on the plus. Again, that will open up the editor for us. We don't want to choose any of the pre-built layouts, so we're going to close out of that, and we're going to just quickly build something really simple ourselves. So let's just drop a container inside here. We're going to then go ahead and add a couple more elements inside here. So I'm going to keep this super simple. If you want to find out how to use the container as part of Elementor and Elementor Pro, the new container feature, I'll put a link in the description so you can check out my videos on using this effectively. But for now, super simple. What we're going to do is we're going to go back over and we're going to add in a couple more containers. And we'll just duplicate this one. So we now have 2 containers. We'll select our first container, and we'll set that to be a row so they now stack side by side. So what we'll do is we'll put our image in the left-hand side and we'll put our content in the right-hand side. So let's do that. Come back over to our widgets. We're going to come over and you can see we've got a range of slightly different options this time. So let's go ahead and use these. Let's grab our featured image and drop that inside there. Now, this is going to pull what it thinks is correct in. Now, we want to make sure that we are using exactly the right data. So let's come down to the little settings cog in the bottom left, come to our preview settings, change this and just choose the option for books. And you can use all if you want to, but let's just say we'll put magician in. Let's search for that and we'll use that as the basis. We'll click apply and preview. And now we know that this is going to pull data from our books custom post type for when we're building this template out. So there we go. There's the first thing. There's our book cover. Let's go over to the right hand side. Let's go and drop in the title. You can see there's Magician. Let's quickly style that. We'll repeat the same process again. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to come over to the option for text editor. We'll drag and drop that underneath. We'll click our little database dynamic tags icon, scroll right the way down to our ACF fields, click the little wrench icon, choose our keys and pull in the synopsis. Again, we just need to quickly style that. So let's just change the color of the text. That'll do for now. And then finally, we're going to do the same thing again. We're just this time going to grab a heading, drop that underneath, change that to be something like a paragraph. Actually, let's set that to be a div. That'll do for now. We'll click the option to change the colors, change the style. Should be getting used to this by now. We've done it a few times. And we're going to come back in, click the dynamic icon, down to our ACF field, click the wrench icon, change this time to book author, advanced by and space. And like we've done before, we will quickly just duplicate this and we will just change the details from book author to book price, and we'll change the by to just the £. There we go. So we've now created the look and feel for this specific page. Let's go ahead and publish this. And like we've seen just now when we create the archive, we now have to set that condition. So let's add our condition. We don't want this to be all singular. We want to come down until we find our books option. And you can see there we've got books. We'll click on that and we'll just say books all, save and close, and we're done. We've created the template for this. Let's hop back over now into our test on the front end of the site. Let's refresh what we saw previously. And there we go. We now have our customized look and feel using templates and so on inside Elementor Pro, referencing the dynamic data that we've created inside Advanced Custom Fields. Now that we've seen how to get started not only adding custom fields to WordPress, but also how to use popular tools to show our custom fields and also how to create custom post types, what other tools are there to do this and if I don't want to use advanced custom fields? So first up, we've already seen how to use advanced custom fields, but it's always worth taking a look at Advanced Custom Fields Pro just to quickly see some of the options that are available and why you may want to consider checking it out. You've got more advanced options, things like repeater fields, which means that if you have simple data that you want to allow people to keep on adding sort of similar things like social networks and things like that, the repeater field is incredibly useful for that. You have ACF blocks if you want to get started in customizing blocks and using those with Gutenberg using native ACF functions. Flexible content container allows you to build up all manner of different things. A lot of these are all covered in my dedicated playlist you can check out in the description below. Options pages if you want to allow global options to your site, things like colors for backgrounds and so on, really useful. And as I said earlier on, you've got the image gallery, plus we've got things like clone fields. So you may want to check this out and see if there are features inside here that you absolutely need, or you just love to start using them, learning them, and expanding your skill set. Next on my list would be Jet Engine from CrocoBlock. Now, Jet Engine is an incredibly powerful set of tools. Unlike ACF, this actually includes a lot more than just the meta field or the custom field creation options. You can create your custom post types, like we see with CPT UI. You can create your own custom layouts, either using Elementor or using Gutenberg, all using the built-in features inside Jet Engine, and a lot more. A query builder is incredibly powerful. There's an absolute abundance of features available, and again, I've got dedicated videos on how you can use a lot of the features included in Jet Engine, so you may want to check this out. It's not particularly expensive, starting at about $43 just for this plugin, but it works really, really well with the rest of the CrocoBlock suite. Have a little look, links in the description for you to check it out. Now, if money is something you just don't really have a lot of and you still want to get in and start working with custom meta information, check out Pods. Pods is totally free. There are some paid ways you can interact with it, but all the tools are pretty much free. So you may want to check that out. Now, I'm not really that big a sort of user of Pods. I've dabbled with it. It's one of those community-based tools that doesn't really have a paid-for network of support, so you may need to have a little bit more understanding of how things work. So I would probably recommend getting to know how dynamic content works before you take a look at using Pods, so you have an understanding of the terminology, the technology, and how it all actually works together. Now, you also may want to take a look at MetaBlocks. Now, MetaBlocks, much the same as a lot of the other tools we've kind of covered, have not just the meta field or custom field ability, it also has the ability to create a lot more. Your post types, relationships, all manner of different things. This is kind of broken down into a modular format, so you can install and use only the features that you want. One of the other benefits of MetaBlocks is that it actually separates its data from the standard WordPress database and has it and holds it in its own dedicated database. This potentially, for larger sites with tens of thousands of records, could be considerably quicker than going down the route of this way that ACF generally works. So check out MetaBlocks. There is a slightly steeper learning curve. It's a little less user-friendly in some instances than ACF and Jet Engine. However, once you get an understanding of the basics and the fundamentals of how dynamic data works, it is a lot easier to transition between these different tools that I've covered. Finally, we have Toolset. Now, Toolset is heavily integrated with Gutenberg. They moved away from a lot of other ways of working to focus specifically on Gutenberg. You can use this alongside something like Elementor and Elementor Pro, so you can still grab that data, and a lot of other tools like Bricks and so on will allow you to use Toolset data. But you don't need to rely on any of those. You can actually use all of the built-in functions of Toolset to be able to build incredibly powerful and incredibly comprehensive websites with native search and map searches and all those kinds of things. However, I will say from my use case, I haven't found it the easiest to get to grips with. It feels a little bit long-winded to do some very simple things, but that might just be me. That might just be the way that I'm used to working with these other tools. So check out Toolset, see what it offers, and see if there's something that you think actually fills the void or the gap that you may have for specific use cases. But as always, all the links to everything I've covered will be down below, so you can take a look at each one of these and you can evaluate what they offer and see if it's something you want to check out for yourself in more detail. Now that you've seen how to get started, I recommend watching the videos in this playlist to expand on the topics covered in this video. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that thumbs up button. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.